Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and you're joining us for What We've Been Playing. I'm here with my co-host, Corinn, the SuperBlondeNerd. Corinn, how are you doing today?
Hey, Mackenzie, I'm doing good. And hey, nerds, what's up? Trying to say
Fantastic.
nerd and good at the same time, so I went gerd.
No worries. So if you haven't checked out Corinn's channel yet already, we'll do some more details later, but take a look in the description of the video below. It's going to have details on what Corinn's all about. Corinn, do you want to give a quick little detail on what you do on your channel?
Yes, I fight the YouTube algorithm. That's what I do because I am a big nerd and love to kind of explore all aspects of that. So I do art stuff. I do a lot of board games because that does well, as well as I very much love playing board games. I just made a Halloween costume, so you can watch my whole kind of tutorial process through that. I do a lot. So there's if you just enjoy nerdy content and like talking about different aspects of nerdism, come over to our channel. We have lots of fun. We talk about I would say like experiences and then opinions and all those things. So there's just more and more things to come because pop culture and nerdism will never end.
One of my favorite things that Corinn put out recently is this reading of The New Mother. She did a really good job on the narration. It sounded very professional, almost reminded me of something that I'd hear from Foreteller. Wonderful. So, and my
Oh,
recommendation is go check that out and also go check out her costume for Halloween. Kind of spoilers here on the thumbnail, but it's pretty incredible. She turned herself into a sandworm from Dune. That's one of the best couple costumes I've ever seen. And amazing.
thank you. Yeah, it was super fun, super silly. I'm definitely a dork, so you guys go and enjoy me doing nerdy and dorky things over on that channel. But thank you for the plug, Mackenzie.
Of course, I really enjoy your content, and as you mentioned, you're kind of fighting an uphill battle against the algorithm. So the more that I can push you, the better.
I
Really enjoy your
appreciate
content.
that. Thank you.
So that's Corinn's channel. Go check out Super Blonde Nerd. But now let's talk about the games that we've been playing. So Corinn, why don't you tell me what's the first game that you want to talk about that you've played in these last couple of weeks?
Okay. I'm debating whether I want to go with what is on the thumbnail or save that for last so that
Up to
we
you.
get
I'm
people. So,
excited to hear your thoughts about everything, regardless.
okay. You know what? I'm going to make it for last. I'm going to do the one that is on our thumbnail for last. But I will talk about first a game called A War of Whispers, which was a new game that my husband was really interested in, and I got that for him for his birthday. So we finally played it. I think it was Sunday. It was just this past week, and it's very much a game system that you're pretty familiar with. There's like territory control. There's battling. There are cards that can help you um, give you advantages or do certain moves that will either help you or give you advantage on a battle or just do an extra move that maybe you couldn't do. The gameplay was very interesting. It's you are one of four, I think, different types of like secret factions. I was the Pale Raven. My husband was the like suspicious spider, something spider. And the really cool thing that I liked about this board was you see around the entire like landscape that's your turn order. So you just follow that circle, the circumference all the way around. And there are 4 rounds, and you are controlling. You take turns. You put agents on each of the different factions, and each secret organization that you're trying to kind of persuade and want the war to go a certain way, you get points based on how well which country does the best. And so you have these little tokens, and we randomized it, and then we put it on this board that basically gives you like 4 times for the best, like 4 times for 4 times points depending on how well that specific faction does, 2 times, 1 time, 0, and negative.
Mhm.
So, and that one right there on the right, and you are secretly you can look at those whenever, so you don't have to like memorize it, but you are hiding that from the other players, and you are secretly trying to persuade the war to go this way or that. Obviously, it will get obvious what factions or what countries people are trying to root for, because you are constantly in the way of being like, oh, you are going to move out of this area and we're going to take over, all those things. And they have all those cards that you saw. If you can get cards from any country, like I said, and you can pay that card's um, price by the icon on the top left corner. You can, if you have two cards of the same faction, you can pay that second tier ability. Or if you have two cards that match the icons at the very bottom, that's a third tier ability. So each one has like advantages or different aspects. I think probably the bottom ones are the best. It would make sense to me, because we had one where you could assassinate some of the flags. That's what you're doing, is placing flags down along the countries. So that's your territory you're conquering. And obviously, whatever country has control of the places with cities, the territories with cities all around the continents, that is, of course, the winner, or the one who has. It's just point based, based on how much you conquer, how many cities you take control of, how many lands with cities you control, and that will affect your point system. And then, like I said, the circle is the point order. You can move your agents around, and that determines your control of like moving the countries per turn. I hope I'm explaining this right. It's a little complicated when first learning it, but it's not like hard to pick up. But it's got several components, and again, you're working. I can't imagine playing with four, to be perfectly honest. Just me and my husband. He was a booger. He was definitely getting in the way a lot. And I'm like, if with four people, I feel like there is going to be no advantage, or just nothing's going to get accomplished. But it depends, because again, you don't know if you and another player both have the same country as your 4 times points. So you could be going for the same country to like win,
Mhm.
or you're going for just points for each country. The main one is the negative points that you're trying to vie against. But yeah, so there's a lot. I thought overall it was a game like a familiar type of game, but just enough of a twist. And again, like that circular gameplay and all that stuff, that I thought it was interesting. So I would say definitely try it out.
Okay. So I totally agree with you, where I think I've heard this concept pitched quite a bit. I played one
Hmm.
recently called Veiled Fate. This is
Hmm.
from Ivy Studios, who did something similar, where you have this hidden character that you're trying to progress, and then others you're trying to push down, of course, while trying to conceal who you're actually fighting for.
Yeah.
I've even seen this theme attached to a high school romance for from the Paname games. They did it so there's
That's
like
so
a bunch of
funny.
girls competing for this one person, and
Oh,
you're
that's fun.
secretly figuring out how you can manipulate the board state to get it so that the
Mhm.
protagonist ends up with your girl, essentially.
Mhm.
So this idea has definitely been seen quite a bit in gaming. I want to know, what makes this one stick out for you. Is this one that you think is above the pack? What does this one do unique aside from the board?
To be honest, I don't know if it would stand above the rest. I
Okay.
think it's a good, uh, again, twist on the same type of gameplay. I do enjoy the artwork. I do enjoy the concepts of it and the agent placement. I'm not sure what other if it's kind of the same thing of the agent placement. If you place an agent, I think it's to the rightmost of the curvature. Then if no one else is there, no other agent is placed there, then you control all the actions of that
Hmm.
specific country or faction, whatever you want to call them. I can't think what they are at the moment. So there is that element that makes it interesting, and in that sense, like strategic, because that's how you get things done, other than cards. Which cards you can play at any time, except for I think there's like one caveat, but it says usually like in the rule books, like you can play a card before or after like a turn or a move. But
Mhm.
I know that there is like a limit. I've only played this once, so I am loose on all of the rules. But it definitely is. I think I would definitely try it again and learn what I've used. Um, yeah, I also don't know how it would be with 4 players, to be perfectly honest with you.
Honestly, the four-player game is where I think this game might shine personally, because you
Sure.
have so many different things going on, and you're trying
There's
to exert your influence almost extremely subtly. In the
mhm.
two-player game, it seems like you can telegraph pretty clearly who's doing what. So I think
Yes,
that if I did try this game, I'd want to play it with more. I think the theming
sure.
is fun. It reminds me a little bit of something like Game of Thrones, where you're
Mhm,
working in the back trying to manipulate everything. So I do
mhm.
like the theming here, and I'd be curious to try this at higher player counts.
Yeah, yeah,
Anything
for
else
sure.
you wanna add about War of Whispers?
Nope, I think I already mentioned. I appreciated the circularness and
Mhm.
like to be as clear as possible of like this is the turn order and it will remain that way. So then you can also strategize and then know like, oh, what's next in the round. So that's really nice.
I really like that. It reminds me of the Dune board game, the one that got
Mhm.
reprinted by Gale Force 9, where the outside is like the initiative. It's also where the storm travels. So it's
Mm,
nice when the board actually facilitates gameplay while
yes.
still being really pretty. I think they did a great job with this presentation.
Yeah, I agree.
Sweet. So that is War of Whispers, the first game that Corinne's been playing. Now, the first game that I want to talk about is I'll do the same thing. I'll save the one on the cover for
Yeah.
last. But the first one I want to talk about also comes with my first question. And so I want to pose this one as a question to you. So the name of the game is called Mall of Horrors. So Mall of Horrors was introduced to me by my friend Dan, and he was very excited to play it. He said, "Oh, this is the perfect Halloween game. We got to make sure that we play this. You need 6 people for it to be good." So I was like, "All right, he's super jazzed to play it. Let's do this." I am thrilled. And then he brings a very old, tattered box to the game area, and it looks like this. And as you can see, my rating of this is actually pretty high. I like this game quite a bit.
Mhm.
But he brought this over, and I was ready for something. Now, when you see this, what do you think? What comes to your head when you think Mall of Horrors? What kind of game do you think this is going to be?
Um, like a survival type of like you have to weave your way through like maybe kind of like the night cage or something where you
Mhm.
place tiles or you have to maneuver to get from like one place to another. Be the last one to survive, basically. Something like that.
So, in theming, you are correct. Your goal is to make it so that your people live the longest. At the
Okay.
end of the game, whoever has the most living people wins. But gameplay wise, this is straight up Mario Party. Like, you are going to be doing some crazy party game shenanigans.
Oh
There's like
my god.
voting phases where you are Survivor chucking people off the island.
Oh my
And
gosh.
they carry the theme in this game superiorly. It's wild how strong the theming of this game is, but how different the mechanisms seem to be. So, as I mentioned before, you're trying to get your characters to live the longest. At the very end, when there's a certain number of people left, then they'll evacuate the game, and whoever's left is you'll get points based on these certain characters. You have a damsel, your cheerleader, basically, that if
Mhm.
she is survived, she is the most frail. And this is obviously extremely stereotype driven, the entire thematic experiences, but that person is going to be worth quite a bit of extra points. They also thematically incorporated that they are very loud, this person, so that they are going to be drawing and attracting a lot of zombies. So they're worth the most points, but
Awesome.
they're very volatile and dangerous to have in your group. And you'll also have a character who has a gun on them. And the person with the gun during voting phases, their votes count as 2. Why? Because they have the gun. They have the power to tell people what to do. Ridiculous. And then lastly, you have a bodyguard who is just there to push off the invading zombie hordes. So this
Mm.
game is primarily played simultaneously. You're going to be going from location to location, setting votes on the different spots, and voting who is going to be thrown to the zombies if zombies break into the locations. So you'll be gathering zombies at the locations, seeing if they actually pillage, and there are even some special abilities in the rooms. If you're in the parking lot, you can get items, and then if you're in the security zone, if you win the vote, so if you have the most people there, or if you the person with the gun and your vote wins, then you can figure out where the zombies are actually going to be coming into. So there's a lot of tiny mini games inside of this large game of survival.
I was just going to ask that. I was like, if it's Mario Party, there's got to be mini games.
Yes. And one of the craziest things about these mini games is you can negotiate with the people at the table. For example, if me and you are in the security area and another person is also there, I can talk to you and say, "Hey, Corinn, please vote for me, and I'll tell you what I see on the cameras." Or, "Oh, I'll give you one of these items if you vote for me," or something like that. Or, "Please," but none of these are binding, so it's pretty scary when you're willing to give your trust and when you're not. And you use the votes through this disc system, so it's all done simultaneously. You select a color, and then you reveal the disc at the same time, and then you'll watch as the population of them all dwindles. This game is awesome. I think it's really well done. The theming is crazy. If you can get past that stereotypical nature of the theme, very much a B movie setting, and I think this is one that you can definitely enjoy, particularly in the Halloween season. So I'm quite surprised with Mall of Horrors, and it totally blindsided me with the mechanism and the theme. And so that's my question to you, Corinn. Well, do you have any questions about Mall of Horrors before we go on to that?
So you were saying that, there's certain people on your team. So are you playing as one character, or are you controlling several characters?
Good question. So you are going to be playing 3 separate characters on the same team. So for example, you may be the cops. And so these are your 3 characters that you'll control. And they'll be in the different locations. And so you can be all over the place, but you need to keep as many alive as possible. The amount of points they're worth is, I believe it's the number on them, or it's just that.
Sure. That looks right. Kind of like oh gosh, I think it's called Survivor, where you have
Survive. Yeah.
Survive.
Yep.
Yeah, where it has the little meeples and each are worth a different amount.
Yep.
And the
It
more
gave me
survive,
very
obviously, the
similar
more
vibes to that one.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Any other questions on Mall of Horrors?
What was your favorite mini game?
Ooh, the favorite minigame. I think that the security was actually pretty awesome. So the fact that you could anticipate what was going to be happening and the locations that you were going to. In addition, if you won the security minigame, you also had to go first when you were placing your characters. So this gave a bit of a mind game situation. If you saw where the zombies were going, do you go to the locations that you know are going to fill up first or are going to be safe? Do you try to throw off the scent? And it's a simultaneous reveal, so it could be really funny to see how things play out if people are trying to go to the same spaces, if another area frees up. If people ever do go to the same space, the overfill has to go to the parking lot, which is like the dangerous zone that always gets overrun by zombies. But it's also the only place where you get items, so there's a trade-off there as well. It's awesome. So I really like the security minigame and how there's reasons to be in each of the different locations. So I quite like that.
Awesome.
So that is Mall of Horrors, but this brings me to my question, and this also goes out to the viewers watching or later if you'd like to leave us a comment down below. Which game's mechanism surprised you based on its themes? So in this case, Mall of Horrors, I thought was going to be a gritty survival game, something akin to like Zombicide, where I was going to go in, pick up items, and destroy a bunch of zombies, but I was pleasantly surprised that it was a party negotiation game with all these tiny little mini games and voting phases. It's wonderful. So I think that game was very good.
Yeah.
Corinn, what came to your mind when I asked you this question?
I am thinking.
It's okay if you don't have one. That's all right.
I don't have one like off the top of my head. I feel like most games that we have like procured and have in our collection are pretty like forthright of like, oh, this is the game that you're gonna be playing.
Gotcha. You get what's on the box.
Yeah.
For me, one that surprised me, not necessarily in the description of the game, but in the name itself, Paperback Adventures. So that's one that I'm playing recently. Super good game. Like I was going to talk about it today, but I don't think I've played enough. I just started playing yesterday.
Sure.
But it is a word game, but it's also a roguelike game. So it's you're going through a dungeon, collecting items, using your words to defeat monsters and stuff. And I was quite surprised how they were able to take this word game and put it into a game like this. So when you look at the description, obviously that's what it's going to be, but when I hear paperback, I'm thinking more something akin to maybe something like Scrabble or something more in, or even the paper making industry, something like that.
Sure. Yeah.
I was quite pleased with this one. So those are some games that the mechanism surprised me based on the themes. If you have any ideas for this question, let us know down in the comments below. Now, Corinn, what is your next game that you're excited to talk about?
I think I'm gonna talk about We're going to talk about the Night Cage, because you were talking about a spooky game. We played this again, of course, because it was Halloween. And this time we did incorporate those other types of monsters that
Ooh, okay.
come with the game. So we played not only the Wax Eaters, but we played with two, I think it was just two Void. So, no, Pit Fiends, and was Omens? The Omens were in there, or no? Was it just Pit Fiends? There's Omens, which bring up the big bad, but we didn't play with the big bad this time. Feel like there's another one. Oh, it was keys. Okay, they're like I can't think of what the monster is called, but they are basically in replace of key tiles. So
Hmm.
you have to face these monsters and defeat them in order to pick up a key. So that makes it interesting. So we played before with 4 players, which I think definitely helped with the extra monsters. Because the best way to defeat the key monsters is you have to hit them from the back.
Hmm.
So we were able to strategize and like team up to be like, hey, someone try to go around in the labyrinth in order to hit the monster in the back in order to get that key for somebody. The pit fiends, yeah, were really obnoxious because once one is, excuse me, revealed, it takes down all of the tiles diagonally. So if you are on one of those diagonal things in the labyrinth, you will fall, which isn't the worst thing, but also it gets rid of more tiles and your pathways. So those,
Hmm.
we were very lucky and we got those very early on in the game. So we were able to just like not worry about them, and we lost some tiles, but we were okay. The key ones were definitely a little bit more. I was worried that we were going to run out of tiles before winning the game, or we did run out of tiles, but we still won the game. But they definitely make us use more tiles as well because you have to work around them. I mean, you can get hit by them just like with the Wax Eaters, but I did enjoy the variety that the other monsters brought. And next time we'll definitely be doing the Big Bad, which is exciting. Which I can't think of what that one's called either, but it looks like it has giant eyes. It's something very like cryptic, like turmoil or something like that. It's just something, the carnage, like something like that. But yeah, no, I enjoyed playing this game again. It definitely fit the spooky theme, and I enjoyed the extra bits of monsters that we got. So yeah, I was really pleased with the Night Cage. It has not disappointed me yet.
That's fantastic to hear. I
Yeah.
do have a quick question for you. When it
Mhm.
comes to games that include a lot of different modules inside, I tend to
Uh-huh.
get to the point where I figure out the way that I like playing the game.
Mm,
I'll use these monsters with this specific character,
sure.
but then there are other games where the modularity is a big feature of the game, and so like in Death May Die, you pick a scenario and you pick a big monster and you smash
Mhm,
them together, and so
mhm.
every game will be completely different. In the Night Cage, how do you see yourself playing this in the future? Is this going to be a game that you're going to, after you've played that big bad, are you always going to play the big bad? Are you going to always use those key monsters? What's going to be your preferred way to play this?
I think we will definitely, because I have noticed that it's not easy by any means, but I
Mhm.
think the more modularity that you do add makes it a little bit more interesting. I will definitely let you know how the big bad goes, but I think adding those different types of monsters was a bit more, I felt more excited about it, you know?
Okay.
So I don't know if I'll leave, not to say that, because you always incorporate some of the Wax Eaters. It's just you have less of them with the additions of the different variants of monsters. So I think I will be keeping it with the variants included. Granted, I don't know if they will be adding more to the Night Cage, which would be exciting, but um, for now at least, I think I will keep the. I don't know. Like I think I would, as a default, add the different types of monsters, but I like the fact that you can add or detract from the game. So just depending on how you feel that day.
Makes sense to me. And I think
Mhm.
it's also going to be something that you can tailor to your group, where if you're
Yes.
playing with a bunch of people who've played Night Cage a lot, throw
Yeah.
in it's called what's this one? The Omen. It's called the Omen. That's the big
Yes.
bad, or the Pathless. Can you
Yeah.
play with both bosses at the same time?
You know, I don't know.
I don't
'Cause
know. I still haven't
we
played this
haven't we
one.
haven't faced him yet, so it's like, "Wait, can we?" Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on this and how the game continues to evolve.
Yeah.
I'm glad there is more content there that's going to be pulling
Mhm.
you back then. Sometimes cooperative games will hit a wall where you beat it
Right.
and there's nothing really to go back to. Things like Pandemic Iberia offer those extra modules
Mhm.
for you to play against. Most recently, I played The Faceless, a game with like magnets and stuff. And
Oh,
there are progressively more difficult events and challenges that you can incorporate as well. So I really like
mhm.
games that add to the difficulty.
Cool. Yes,
Sweet.
I think
Anything? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think Night Cage does a good job of adding at least some level of difficulty to it, so it's still interesting.
Hmm. When's the next time you think you'll play Night Cage?
Mhm. Probably soon. I mean, I would definitely maybe probably with our, like, main group that we play games with, just because we have been playing like, they've been the main group that we've been
Hmm.
playing Night Cage with, so might as well be the next one up is, the big bad.
That makes sense. Nothing like a spooky Thanksgiving, right?
Oh, yeah.
The spillover from Halloween.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else to add about the Night Cage?
Mm-mm.
All right. So that is the Night Cage, still impressing Corrin with its modular expansions that come in the box. Do these come with the game?
It did, yeah, all of
Oh,
it.
awesome.
Yep.
All right. Super cool. All right. So that brings us to my next game. Another
Mhm.
very creepy theme, actually. This is a hell theme. So this one
Oh.
is has you playing as soldiers of the dark, going into the Hellscape and defeating a variety of creatures. It's a mission-based game where it's a single-shot experience. So you'll get to have the entire arc of leveling up your character and battling these baddies, but also piloting your own asymmetric faction. And this game is Massive Darkness to Hellscape. Now, this one I was quite impressed with, actually. I heard a lot of positive reviews on it, and I heard that it incorporated some mechanisms from games that I already enjoyed, things like
Mhm.
Cthulhu Death May Die and Zombicide. It has the leveling up in the dungeon itself, so you're not doing any management at the end of a scenario and then playing a campaign. There is a campaign if you want that, but it's definitely not something that's baked into the initial system. And I love that here. You can go from level 1 all the way up to level 9, I believe, in a single scenario. Generally, you're going to get to probably level 5 or level 6. But right at the very beginning, even if you just start the game, you get to pick an upgrade to start your adventure. And so every time you play, there's a bunch of different paths per faction that you can incorporate into your strategy. We've played 4 of the different factions in Massive Darkness, and the factions are all wildly different, but they all rotate around this core mechanism of combat, looting, and completing objectives. And so every time you interact with creatures, you're going to be grabbing a grip of dice, throwing them up. You've got options for rerolls. You can reroll your own dice or the enemy dice to improve your successes or reduce the amount of damage that you're going to be taking. And then based on your faction, you're going to be able to interact with the board in some certain way. For example, you may be a magician who has the spell wheel that's able to
Mhm.
move it around. I actually have the copy of the rule book here. I'm going to bring that up in a second, but the magician has a spell wheel that they're going to be able to manipulate and move around. And when they do that, they're able to chain these magic attacks and move them across their different these combo centric pieces. Essentially, it's pretty
Cool.
amazing how they have taken the core system and they've bolstered it with these unique factions as opposed to forcing you down specific routes through
Sure.
playing through your specific faction. It reminds me a lot of something like Too Many Bones,
Mhm.
where you can do a lot of different things with one character, and I
Yeah.
love that. You're not pigeonholed. Whereas something like Merchant's Cove really much said, "Hey, this is the way you play. You better do
Mm.
it this way," which I think is great. And also the fact that it is cooperative. When other players are taking their turns, you are asking what abilities may pair well with your abilities, so it opens the potential for cool combos even greater because you're able to use your abilities in tandem with another effect that
That's so
might
cool.
not have been possible based on the setup of just maybe playing a solo game or playing competitively where you just need to do the best you can. I love that. I think it's super smart and the game design is brilliant. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of these factions. So here's one that I did play, the Berserker faction. They have this wheel that goes on the top of their character, and every time they take damage, they move the damage up to the top of their wheel, and they're able to use that damage as an additional resource. So they're wanting to incur more penalties so they can trigger all of their different abilities and effects. So that's
Love
the
it.
Berserker. You also have the, ooh, it's taken a long while to load here.
Well, It's like 37 pages.
Okay, here's the paladin here, and the paladin has these different auras that they can throw on the board. And when you level up,
Oh.
you are assigning those abilities to your different auras. And so you can either spec into one specific auras or have a lot that you're going to be throwing out. You've got the magician
Ooh.
who has the spell wheel, and that's how I described it earlier. You can either use the spells or you can use your magic to push it along to get
Mhm.
the exact spell that you're trying to use. That's okay. So we're at the top here. And then there's another character who's a rogue who their actions, instead of just having action points, their actions are actually based on a bag building system. And so every turn you'll pull out actions from your bag here and then use those actions in order to interact with the board. And so some of your abilities may let you draw more tokens or add new special actions to the bag. It's
Mhm.
so smart, and I'm really impressed. The most recent one that I played though was from the Kickstarter expansion, and
Okay.
this was the Druid. And so we played the Druid and the Magician this last time, and we lost on the very last turn. We got to this final boss, and out of nowhere, the one of the four horsemen, Death, showed up,
Oh my
and
gosh.
that was just straight up like defeat you. You had a
Yeah.
1 in 4 of just dying. I was like, God, this is garbage. We didn't have a chance to react to it, unfortunately. So it was not the coolest thing. That's not true. We had one turn to react to it before it eventually defeated us.
Just fighting death itself. No big deal.
We were so close. We were 2 successes off from victory.
Oh.
It was such a good game though. Like I wouldn't change anything. It was so
Yeah.
much fun. So much to the point where I played this with my wife Ariana, and she very much was like, "Hey, we should play that again." And I was like, "Yeah, we definitely should play that again." She really likes this one too.
That's
But
awesome.
as the shaman, not the shaman, the druid here, you have forms that you can transform into, and they not only offer you special abilities, but also they put restrictions on you. If you
Cool.
become the bear, you're super slow, so your movement is half. You get half movement whenever you do movement actions. The eagle is super quick and powerful, but you're an eagle. You're not very big. You can't open things. You can't really move
Mhm.
around. You can move around well, but you can't open things or really pick up or interact
Yeah.
with things. And then the raccoon is not the strongest characters. You can't really do a lot of big fancy damage or anything like that, but you can run around like a fiend. So this, if you're the raccoon, you're going to be able to jump around the entire dungeon. And the
So
way that it
cute.
works is whatever form you're in, you do not generate ability points for that character. So if I'm the bear, I would stay at 0 here, but every other form that I am not in gains and action points. So you can charge up your forms, so when you eventually unleash them, you'll have a bunch of abilities that you can use. So when I eventually finally turned into the raccoon, I had
Mhm.
all the energy at max, and so I was flashing down the entire dungeon and
Yes.
picking up everything. It was
Picking
so
up
much
with
fun.
your little hands.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. I'm quite impressed with Massive Darkness 2. It's one that I just want to play more of. So I'm very happy with this game so far. Any questions on Massive Darkness?
I was
Or
gonna ask how many factions did or classes did the expansion add?
ooh, that's a great question. So in the core game, I believe there are 6
Okay.
factions. Each of the additional expansions though adds usually 1 or 2. There's like a
Okay.
monk and a necromancer.
Mhm.
There's the druid one just comes with the druid, and
Okay.
then there's I'm trying to think. There's like gnomes as well. Some of
So
these
there
are Kickstarter exclusives, so they did come with like the
okay.
stretchable box. So some
Okay.
that had like a bunch of variations, and then even in the factions themselves, there are multiple characters for each faction that'll
Oh,
change the way that
cool.
you can play. So they have a different ability. The
Nice.
druid that I played was like a ranger, but there was also
Mhm.
one that was a tiger person, and that
Mhm.
was kind of cool. So they had their own different way of using the different upgrade paths. So I'm pretty impressed with this one. I think it's one that I'm going to go back to quite a bit.
It sounds super fun.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. The theming is take it or leave it. It's
Sure.
you're killing monsters. It's a dungeon, but the
Right.
fact it's contained, but you get all of that upgrading experience in one session, it's pretty incredible. I quite
Yeah.
like Math of Darkness 2 Hellscape.
Are is there like the biggest boss, or is it just like you were saying, like it's a one shot, so it's just whatever boss that you draw, and then that's the one like you go for?
That is a great question. So the way that it works is you have options on how you want to run your session. So
Okay.
based on the scenario you pick, you're going to be progressively running through either these small mob monsters, which are like these groups of
Mhm.
enemies, or you're going to be fighting against these larger, they're called roaming monsters. You can see there's like a giant creature over there, but then
Mhm.
there are also smaller groups of these little monsters. So
Gotcha.
those are always going to be in every scenario. But you also can choose a scenario that offers a gigantic boss as well. And so they have their own like extra sheet with extra abilities, and it just depends on the scenario you're picking.
Mm.
And you can tailor it to your experience. If you want just a quick, I'm going in here, I'm racking stuff up, counting bodies, let's go. You could do that.
Yeah.
Or if you want a more epic experience with that final boss, you can do that too. I really like the modularity and the difficulties of the different settings. The first 3 missions are very easy though, so that's something to be aware of when you do play this for the first time. You might find it like the easiest game you've ever played. But once you get into the maybe 4th or 5th, 6th scenario, then you'll start realizing that there is some difficulty to be had with the system. So I think that's quite awesome.
It's just like a video game. You got to have your like tutorial kind of levels and objectives to get done before you actually really get into the game.
Absolutely. And they actually, the first scenario is literally a tutorial scenario. So
Yeah.
it's like, what do you got to do? You got to press this button and press this other button and you win the game. And sure. Okay.
Press A to fish. Yeah.
Precisely. So that is Massive Darkness 2 Hellscape. Amazing game. I really like this one.
Yeah, I like it.
Corinn, this brings us to our last one here, the one that's on our thumbnail. What are we talking about next?
Flamecraft, which I did not even realize that I knew the artwork and have seen a lot of the adorable pictures and stuff beforehand, just because I follow a bunch of artists online, as well as Pinterest was showing me specifically this like little scene where it was a waiter and he had a little dragon and it was flambeing like the creme brulee or whatever of like this other girl, and I was like, oh, that's so cute. And then I was like, oh, it's from this game. So Flamecraft is an adorable fantasy themed not machine, what is it called, words, engine building, there it is, engine building and a little bit of deck building. Well, it's more, I guess, tableau and engine building kind of game where you have different, I think it's 5 different types of dragons that are all specialized in either making really nice jewels. They help. It's like if dragons were the Pokemon, it was just little sizes of Pokemon, and they helped with all of your daily tasks like cooking food and making herbs and medicines, and oh man, what else did they do? Research and helping people, helping with plants. Like, they're just so cute. The artwork is precious, and there's so much of it. There are different shops, so you all start with base shops that you can go to. And there are 5 different dragons that you can collect. Each of them are named individually. Some of them have adorable names like Carl, and then other names like I'm trying to think, Wolf Swift or something. You know, just like more fantasy ness. But those ones that you're showing right there, those are specialty shops that have specifically that black band that show you specific extra abilities or perks that you get from visiting those shops. So you're trying to place dragons on each of those little white tabs on the bottom. When you place a dragon there, they have all these little different different icons. The hearts, I think, is what you're collecting. And I'm trying to even remember what is the actual, I think it's like, it's not popularity, it's prestige or just something like
victory points.
Victory points, yeah. So you can place, depending on those symbols, that's the type of dragon that you can place.
Okay.
And you get those hearts when you place your dragon there, and that will add to your victory points and all that. And each of the types of dragons, it's all the same. So the 5 types of dragons, each of them, even though there's like maybe 20 of the anvil dragons, they all have the same ability. Okay. So you'll know what you're getting when you place a dragon there. But then it's with the specialty shops that add like that variety. You're collecting coins. Coins count as basically wilds for the different elements or resources that you're collecting. You're collecting potions, anvils, meat, bread, and leaves and crystals. You can use those amounts of resources to get those specialty cards, which are laid out in the middle there. Those are specific, I can't, like, orders, specific things that give you, again, more victory points as you're going through. The way that they're spells. I think that's what they are. The way that you win the game is, of course, having the most victory points, but the game ends either by running out of spells or running out of dragon cards, which you can definitely do because you are constantly placing and reworking, and you can move different dragons to different shops depending, again, on the dragon's ability. It is so wholesome and so precious. I'm trying to think what else you can do in this
But
game.
is it good, Corinn?
It is good.
Okay.
It's great. It's like I said, it's tableau building and like worker placement in the sense, I guess it's not really worker placement because you don't have a limit on how many workers. You have a limit of like what you do per turn.
Okay.
So you have two different types of turns. You can either place your dragons and do all the shop stuff, or you fill out the spells and are able to do the spells by spending your resources and doing those things. They have adorable names and like different. All of the names have like either are just cute, or like that one, critical roles, is like based on
Nice.
you get it. They are very aware of themselves. Yeah, I think the mechanics are great. Uh, we played it with my sister and her husband. I really enjoyed. There are 10. Was it 10 or 12 shops that you can have in each game? But there are, gosh, I don't know, 40 different types of shops. So there's a lot of variety of what kinds of shops and abilities are going to come up. So each game is going to be different. Again, the artwork is precious, and the different dragons that you can collect and use to get what you need to do. Those stars up there, that's like random, like you can get whatever resources you want. You can upgrade your shops. That's what I think the spells do. Enchantments, that's what they're called. Enchantments. You enchant your shops so you get more stuff when you come to the shops. I hope I've explained. I don't even know if I've explained the gameplay, and I've just been going on and on about the artwork and the preciousness. But it is a good. I very much enjoyed it. Played it once so far, but that is what I've gotten from it.
Well, Corinne, I'm going to press you a little bit on the gameplay, and it's one of the reasons that I didn't end up backing this game. So I did see it on Kickstarter quite a while ago, and I
Uh,
chose not to back it because I saw some playthroughs of it, and to
okay,
me, it looked like a very basic contract fulfillment game where you send
gotcha.
characters out, gain resources, and then use those resources to fulfill contracts. And so for
Hmm.
me, for a game of that type, it needs to do something very interesting to make it stand out.
Okay,
Yes, the art is lovely. The whole theming is wonderful, but is the game going to just be simply gathering resources and then trading resources? What's going to be the hook
gotcha.
aside from the art and the theme?
Mm. I mean, again, I think it's the different types of shops that you can get, and that will add to the variety of the gameplay,
Okay.
to figure out whether or not those help or hinder you fulfilling those contracts. Um, yeah, I know that certain ones that you fulfill give you different point systems. So, like one in the middle there, depending on how many resources you have, if you have like 4 steaks and 4 breads, that can increase the amount of hearts or prestige victory points that you get instead of just having the one pair. So like the card says, have a pair of steak and bread, you fulfill that contract. But if you have multiples of those, you increase your pointage for that. So just depending if that adds any more variety to what you're looking for. Like I said, I've played it once, so I would
Mhm.
really have to play it multiple times to be like, yeah, it's kind of like it's the same thing over and over again, which I mean, it will be, but with the variety of the shops, as well as knowing again the mechanics now and being like, oh, how much quicker this is going to go, because it definitely felt, it wasn't like long turn order,
Mhm.
long turn overdue kind of thing. So, but I mean, I am a sucker for the artwork and the theme, so that is going to persuade me.
I totally get that. There are some games that I'll give condolences to, or I'll allow it
You'll
because
allow it.
I
You'll
love
let
the
it pass.
world and I love the theme. Townsfolk Tussle is one that comes to my mind that
Oh,
I'm like,
sure.
the art and the theme is so good, but I just wish the game was better.
Yeah.
So I want to hear you talk about this one in the future. I want to hear
Yeah.
your thoughts when you come back to this. You'll be my information here to see if this is one that gets added to the library.
Okay.
Because so far, what I'm seeing of
I will
this
do it.
and the gameplay that I've saw, and even now the recent deliveries, it's not really swaying me so much.
Okay.
I'm very much on this side of I think that I don't think this is going to be a good fit. I think the theme is fantastic, but I'm not sure if this is going to be one that's going to stand out gameplay wise.
Sure.
Does this game remind you of any other games?
Now that
I
you're
can cut in
saying
here
that.
really quick. I have one that's like
Go.
totally reminds me of
Good.
Ex Libris. Actually, have you heard of this game?
Ex Libris.
Ex Libris. Ex Libris was a very hot game, like in
Okay.
2017 during Gen Con, and then it kind of fell off the map. What it
Okay.
is you are fantasy librarians. You're in a sort of a Halloween town village where
Cool.
you are going to be creating these huge libraries, and it features a very similar system where you're using worker placement in order to visit locations, and
Mhm.
each location you visit is going to change every single time. And so there are these
Mm.
large locations in the middle of the board here that you put your workers on, and each of you also has a specialty meeple that counts as your character. And
Mhm.
so your combination of your character plus the locations is going to be generating you book cards. And then with these books, you're going to be creating a tableau of books, of library books inside of your own little library here. And so when you're done, it may look something like this, where you've got this huge library with all these perfectly stacked shelves.
Mhm.
For me, I think this is a cool concept where it's not necessarily just something like contract fulfillment,
Yeah.
but you are collecting something with the purpose of organizing them and setting them up. I think the theme works really well here. Gameplay wise, though, those unique locations just don't really feel that crazy unique, unfortunately. They are
Okay.
different iterations on the same mechanisms, but I don't think they're strong enough to make Ex Libris really stand above and
Mm.
beyond games in this similar weight category. Very cool game, great theme. This is one that I do like pulling out during Halloween time because I do love
Mhm.
this idea, and the names of the books are fantastic. It's got
Awesome.
that idea where you can read them as you're playing and just giggle at all the puns and the spooky
Yeah.
names. But
I was gonna say this sounds like a great game.
it's fun. I like it.
Yeah.
It's definitely not a huge standout, but it is
Sure.
quite a lot of fun when it does get played.
I feel like there is a game, and I'm just gonna remember it after our live stream here because I'm just like, I know I have played other contract fulfillment games, and it's not coming to my brain.
If it comes to your head
What they
later,
are.
we'll make sure to bring it back up.
Yeah, yeah.
Anything else to add about Flamecraft?
I mean, all of those components that you saw, they came with it, like the rolled out mat and all that stuff. So I think that was really appreciated. Really appreciated. So that was really nice. So that is a perk of the game.
Now, I
I'm
know that
sad that
there
you
was
aren't like being
a
persuaded, but I understand as well. You have a lot of games.
I'm very skeptical. Sometimes games are really pretty and the
Right.
gameplay just isn't there to support it, but it seems like you had a good time. So
Weird.
I am excited to hear your next gameplay report
Yes.
on Flamecraft. So that is Flamecraft. Anything else you want to add, Corinn, before we move on to the next one?
You should at least try it.
Okay. I'll find somebody with a copy. I don't actually know anybody with a copy of this,
Oh,
and I'll give it a try. But $100 asking price for the deluxe edition was just a little out of price range for something that I wasn't like,
right.
oh, this is gonna be
Exactly.
a hit. Like, and I
Exactly.
don't see myself playing something of this weight or this scale, even like as a solo player. So I'm not sure if this one will get played at all.
Totally understand.
Yeah, but that's Flamecraft. Sweet. All right, and that brings us to the last game that we're talking about on the what we've been playing, and this is I'm just going to lead with my question here because I think that this is pretty prevalent in this game. My question is, what's your favorite recent board game art? So if you're watching live or you're watching now, and Corinn, I'll go ahead and give this to you now. What's your most favorite recent board game art?
Can you
Which one
guess?
is it? Flamecraft?
Yes.
Go figure. So that's why I saved it for the last one. I thought it was a perfect question for this.
Yeah.
My favorite board game art as of late is actually this game that I'm going to talk about now. And I think this game is awesome. I think it's very
I'm
fun.
excited.
I'm kind of curious though to see how its longevity will be, but
Mm.
I did have a great time when I played it. So I played it. It arrived last week. I've played it once through. Did not win. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of different endings that you can get, but this is Spire's End Hildegard. So
Mm.
Spire's End is a story game where you are going to take control of a character. You'll be running through a different set of encounters, whether they be small or large. You'll have these large encounters, these mini encounters. And in this game in particular, the setting is you play as a young girl named Hildegard, and you're going to have a package that you deliver. Now, I'm not going to get into any spoilers of the game here, but I will pull up some of the art here because I do think it needs to be shared. This game is lovely. The entire aesthetic here is very much a fall theming. You've got these lovely oranges and browns and very soft tones throughout, and I love this experience. And the setting is very personable. You'll have a deck of cards that you'll be going through, and every time that you gain items, you'll be sliding them under your character, so the organization is there, and you'll have your trusty slingshot, you'll have your set of dice that you'll be using, and then you'll have tokens that will be counters for a variety of things. I do love the artwork though. As you can see here, the playmat features that art, and one of your first encounters of the game is a scarecrow that is going to be throwing all sorts of corn on the cob at you, and they spin around to determine the different abilities that they'll have. But I do also think that the combat system and the challenge system here is quite fun. You'll have a set of these dice that have bullseye pieces on them. And your goal, as you're using your slingshot, is to amass bullseyes. And these come in all sorts of forms. You can use a single dot here, and then if that's the case, you'll need to find a full circle in order to complete that dot. Or you can use a half and the dot in the center, or maybe you're lucky and you get a full half of a bullseye and you roll the other half of the bullseye. So when you are re-rolling, you can always save one dice to re-roll the others. You are trying to set yourself up for paths that will potentially increase your odds or decrease your odds. Certain enemies will only be able to be hit by certain bullseyes, and you also will get to roll this additional die afterwards to increase your odds on success. As you play, you'll be able to level up those odds, but the idea is you're going to be going through this deck of cards, and the card is going to be full of story. As mentioned before, I am not going to go into any spoilers here, so I'm not going to talk anything past that. You have a package you're delivering, but I think it's quite fun. There are going to be multiple endings for the experience. After finishing, I would say that I haven't seen probably 3/4 of the cards in the game, which is awesome, which means there is a lot of content to go back to, and it's one that I am excited to jump into. This is primarily story first, so that's something that you need to be aware of. If you're not a big fan of reading in your games, there's a lot of reading in this, lots of looking at a card, checking it, going to the next card, finding that. But the gameplay is quite brisk because they are in those small supplements on cards. If you don't like the dice system, this is not going to be a game for you because it happens pretty much all the time. But for me, I think it's quite fun. It's very easy to run, simple to play. There are some moments that disrupt the flow of gameplay where you'll hit maybe a large rules text thing, or maybe like 10 cards show up and you're like, okay, I got to read all this so that I can know how to do this encounter. So that is something to be aware of. We see this in games like Solomon Kane or these other big story games with these unique situations and settings. So that is something you got to be aware of when you play Spires and Hildegard, is you are going to be in those situations as well. And that may not be something you're comfortable with, but I think that they are easy enough to understand, and there's a great flow in the rulebook here, and it's easy to keep the rulebook out because that gameplay space of everything else is so simple and straightforward. But wow, this artwork, I love it so much. I wish I could be in this world. I wish that this theming would be around in other games.
Yeah.
Lovely.
It's really, it's like a graphic novel, like the line work and everything. It's really nice. I love it seems like a subdued color scheme, which is very cool. And that just adds more to the artsy fartsiness of it. But no, it's very well done and really, really nice looking. It looks really fun.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's a subdued art. The color that they do add very much pops.
Yes.
And you go from different location to different location. And so you get to see this art style in those various locations, which
That's
I
cool.
love. You're not stuck in this one simple setting. However, I'd be cool with it. Like, I love this style. Keep me in this setting all day. But you do get to see it throughout. And it's, whether it be creatures or people or items, it just gives you this coziness as you play. And it's a setting that I could spend a lot of time in. So I'm excited to play more of this. And it's one that I do recommend. I really like this game, and I see myself playing it more.
For sure.
Yeah. Any other questions on Hildegard before we move on?
So you have how many scenarios have you played for, or I guess story?
So there is one scenario. That's it. There's just
Oh,
one single
okay.
scenario, but based on your decisions, you're going to be
Just
going
different
down different
endings.
paths.
Okay.
So it's almost like a choose your own adventure book,
Mhm.
but I've only played through it once in the
Okay.
entirety. So I have not seen what those paths are going to take, but
Okay.
just
Cool.
through my decisions, I can already tell that there's a lot of different variety in what you
Yeah,
can do.
that's cool. I like it.
So I'll give my thoughts of it overall, hopefully when I've played it multiple times, but I do see myself wanting to play this again. So very
Yeah,
good stuff.
for sure.
There's also on the Spire's End website, there are these promo packs that
Mhm.
will add new story cards into it to increase the not randomness, but the new events that show up. And so
Okay.
some of the events that you meet will have multiple cards in the same number. So that way, every time you play, you're picking one of maybe four cards
Okay.
instead of seeing the same one every time, which is
Mhm.
cool. It's going to be a new situation that you'll find yourself in.
Yeah,
So those will be here sometime. I enjoyed the game quite a bit. So went out and got those for the library. I'm excited. I hope it's great.
I if it is the same as you have been saying it so far, and you very much enjoyed it, I think it will be.
Absolutely. So those are the games that we've been playing. Now we'll move on to the wrap up all of the games that we've played. So Corinne, do you want to start off? What are the
Sure.
games that you've been playing and how many did you get played this time?
Only 9. So I have been playing The Lost Ruins of Arnak, Seven Wonders, Splendor, Flamecraft, The Night Cage, Viticulture, Of War Whispers, Iki, and Oceans.
I'm happy that you're still talking about Iki. What was on the top of your game experiences? Top 3.
I will definitely say, well, Flamecraft was very fun. And again, just taken aback by the beautiful artworks. I'm it'll take me a while to get over that. I really enjoyed Iki. I think Iki was probably the top. We had just like a really close game
Mhm.
between all of the players. It's one of the best I've done of playing Iki, and it was really just a really it just was a good session for playing with Iki. So, and I went for like the tobacco and the pipes, and like that really uh, raised my score. And it was just fun to see the different ways that like me and my brother-in-law went for like the tobacco pipes and everything, and really like honed in on that score system, while my sister and my husband were going more for like trying to get those buildings and getting more points that way. Like my husband got the building that gives you just 22 Iki because you can. So yeah, no, it's still a great game. Really enjoyed playing this again, and all the options of the different shopkeepers and everything like that. It's also a very beautiful game. So really enjoyed that.
The way you describe this, I would rather play Iki right now than Flamecraft, honestly.
Oh,
Thoughts?
sure, sure. Yeah,
Which
I
would
will
you rather
say
play right now? Would you rather play Iki again or would you play Flamecraft again right now?
right now, Flamecraft.
Really? Ah!
Yeah, well, just because I want to, like you were saying, like I want to play it again, see if it's because like this is
Don't
my
use me as an excuse.
mm, second or third time like playing. I played Iki more, so I want to play Flamecraft so
Okay,
that I can be
okay.
like compare and contrast. I will say, Oceans was probably my least favorite, but it was
Mhm.
also because it was my first time playing it, and there was just a lot. It was a lot.
Hmm.
It was the end of the night. It was the last game that we were doing, so it was one of those situations where it's like you're learning a new game, but it's also later. So I'm just like, and there was a lot that went into that like explanation and getting it done. So it was a longer game, and I was just like, meh. But the artwork and the tokens, the fish tokens, so fun, so very neat. I definitely would want to play this one again as well, because it was a definitely interesting type of gameplay, something I don't think I've experienced necessarily before. Just with it's like a tableau building, but like you're creating you're creating species of fish. So it was definitely interesting, but I was just like, "Oh, it was a lot. It was a lot to learn at the time." And I'm an old lady and like to go to bed early, so I was just like, "This is a lot." But
I totally get that. When
yeah,
we're playing games, sometimes we'll put all of the new games first and then play some favorites afterwards, so there's
yes,
just no overhead.
yeah, we
No,
should have done
sorry
that.
that was your experience though with
No,
Oceans. I hope
it's
it's better the
okay.
second time.
Yeah, I would definitely play it again because again, like I thought the mechanics were good, the artwork and all of the fish icons and everything was really cool. I just need to be more awake.
Makes
So
sense. Anything else you want to add?
I'm excited for Christmas for more games.
Totally. All right, we'll move on to my games that I have played these last couple of weeks. I have 45 unique titles going with, and here we go. We've got Glory to Rome, So You've Been Eaten, Crokinole, Vengeance, Roll and Fight, Air, Land and Sea, Mosaic, A Story of Civilization, Endless Winter, Paleo Americans, Mansions of Madness, 2nd Edition, Massive Darkness 2, Marvel Legendary, Marvel Champions, After the Empire, Sky Mines, Unmatched, Battle of Legends, Blood on the Clocktower, Fearsome Floors, Mall of Horrors, Don't Mess with Cthulhu, Everdell, War Chest, Lost Cities, Mysterium Park, Vagrant Song, Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition, Mind Management, Spirit Island, Final Girl, ISS Vanguard, Savannah Park, Tussie Mussy, Food Chain Island, Race for the Galaxy, Rumble in the Dungeon, Skulls of Sedlick, Space Base, Clash of Deck, Werewords, Fun Employed, So Clover, Deception, Murder in Hong Kong, Holler Tau, Mythic Mischief, Spire's End, Hildegard, and Paperback Adventures.
Nice.
Okay, so those are all the games that got played. I'm going to start with my bottom three. My bottom three were Mysterium Park, Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition, and the solo mode of Mind Management.
Okay.
Now, I want to be very clear with you. Mind Management is a great game. However, when you play the solo mode, it's an app basically. So you aren't even playing with the board. You're setting up the board and you are moving the pieces on the board. But all of the stuff you're doing, you input into the app because the app is essentially the person that's hiding. So they got to track all your information and movement.
Yeah.
And that's not something that I'm a big fan of, particularly in the board game format. Now, that being said, I think the app is really well done, and I might just play the app and not even set up the board. But at that point, it doesn't really become a board game. So that's why that one's rated so low, is because the app is so good that it's not even a board game at that point. It's just an application. So I think that's kind of unfortunate that I wanted some form of integration where I was able to play without having to do everything. But I understand that's also not really realistic. They're going to need to understand. The AI is going to need to know where I'm going.
Sure.
But inputting all that is just not something that I'm interested in. But
yeah,
maybe I'll bring it on the plane with me and that becomes an app that I can play.
There you go.
We'll see. Mansions of Madness continues to be not one that I'm enjoying recently. We played a scenario. So Mansions of Madness is an app-based game where it's super easy to start playing. You can just start playing, which is awesome. You get 2 actions on a turn. You can move or you can interact with something. That's about it. And unfortunately, Mansions of Madness to me becomes a game of action efficiency with only 2 actions, and then your choices don't become that exciting. The game's difficulty comes from forcing you to rush things, and that's pushing you to not exploring. And so this game that should be about running around and exploring and seeing these different things, you can't really do that because you'll probably lose. You'll run out of time if you do so. And I really dislike that. If you see a cool item on the floor, you're like, ooh, an awesome machete, or oh, this ancient sword. You can't pick it up because if you do, you're wasting time picking up that sword when you need to be moving towards your next objective or doing this next thing. And it's just not fun for me. It's super annoying when you're spending maybe 3/4 of your actions moving and then the other quarter doing objective related tasks, which are more like sequencing puzzles as opposed to real gameplay choices. So pretty disappointed with that. And lastly, Mysterium Park. Mysterium Park is, it's just kind of there. It's honestly not that exciting to me. I'd rather play the normal Mysterium. I like the interaction and the interplay. The fact that you are constantly engaged in what other people are doing because you can vote to see if they're correct or incorrect on their answers. And if you have completed and found your picture, you get to move on to the next stage. And so the person giving clues is choosing who to prioritize the clues to. I love that. The fact that you have a constant choice of who you're giving clues to, the player prioritization, and you may give up a perfect clue for somebody that's further along to help out somebody with a subpar clue in the lower levels. I like that choice on the ghost side, and I also like the interaction and the theming and experience on the non-ghost side. So Mysterium Park is missing that in spades, and I don't know if I'll ever go back and play Mysterium Park, honestly. It's just okay to me. Bottom one, though, is probably honestly, Mansions of Madness. It's really disappointing me recently. It's not one that I ever want to play, honestly. I'd rather play Arkham Horror, the card game, or Death May Die, or Massive Darkness. Give me some good story in one session. Top 3 though: Race for the Galaxy, Massive Darkness 2, and Blood on the Clocktower. Real talk, I might drop Massive Darkness 2 for Paperback Adventures. God, Paperback Adventures is so good. It's kind of incredible, actually. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drop Massive Darkness 2 for Paperback Adventures. This particular play, though, of Massive Darkness 2, I played a lot with my wife, and it was awesome. So I had such a good time. That's why it was so high up there, is just because we had a great time doing it. Race of the Galaxy, I actually got to play with my dad. I showed it to him for the first time, and he loved it, which I was super happy for, because if he liked it, that means that whenever he comes and visits, we probably play a lot, and it's an incredible 2-player game. So the fact that he was so engrossed with it and able to pick it up, which is awesome, because it is a simultaneous game. He does have a bit of trouble with understanding things that have lots of iconography sometimes, but this one seemed to click with him, which I thought was awesome. So the fact that he was able to get into it and understand everything, and the gameplay was great. We had a really good time. He focused on a military strategy, and I focused on a development strategy where I could play all sorts of crazy cards. Awesome. But top experience has been Blood on the Clocktower. We had 3 games that were notable. First game was on our SideGame Halloween party, essentially. We had a 17-player game of Clocktower that we played Bad Moon Rising. It was incredible, and I was able to do it perfectly. It didn't mess up anything. It was so good. It ran so smoothly, and it got down to the final 3 again. So there was a chance for good to win, and it was perfect. I couldn't have done it better. So it was so awesome to see that go through. And then I also had the opportunity to play Blood on the Clocktower with some friends from Table Knots. So the other YouTube channel, another YouTube channel, Max and Doolin, who run that channel over there, they had on their Discord an invite for online Blood on the Clocktower. So I got to try that out for the first time. And I've story told 5 times now, or 4 times now, for Blood on the Clocktower online. So I'm getting comfortable with doing that, which was a lot of fun. So I quite like those games. I ran some Sects and Violets and Bad Moon Rising games, and I also got to play in a Trouble Brewing game, which was quite fun. I'm probably the worst at Blood on the Clocktower. I think I'm genuinely garbage at the game. I believe people way too much. If somebody tells me something like, wow, you would never lie to me. Yes, absolutely. You are the most trustworthy person ever.
I totally get it.
And then at the end, the reveal happens, and I'm like, you all lied to me? How could you?
And everyone's like, go to Mackenzie. Tell him whatever you need to.
Somehow, I have not lost a game of that, though.
That's
but
awesome.
The fact the game can trick me and genuinely convince me that what I'm doing is correct based on the information, based on the strong plays. Played with, I forget the names. Lunar was his tag, but I had met up with him like the first day and made this relationship with him. I was like, okay, Lunar, you tell me information. I know that you can't be this person. This person's claiming too hard on that. You're definitely not the demon, but he was totally a minion playing me the whole time. I'm like, oh my gosh. And even set up a crazy play where the person that I thought could be the demon ended up surviving and through this crazy play. And so I was so gung-ho about voting, but everybody else at the group was not with me at all. They're like, Mackenzie, you're crazy. What are you talking about? I'm the world's greatest investigator, though. I got all my reads wrong. It was lovely.
Nice. That's amazing.
If you are interested in doing some online Blood on the Clocktower, though, I'd love to storytell for your friend group over in Pennsylvania. Yeah, so that would be awesome. So if that's something that you're interested in, I would love to do a storytelling session for y'all.
I will talk to people.
Do it. Let me know. I would be happy to run that.
That's awesome. I did remember a game that was surprising based on the theme of like the gameplay, because you reminded me, Search for Planet X.
Okay.
Because that was more of like a clue deduction kind of guessing game, and I was like, wow, I would not have thought of this type of like sci-fi, very methodical of just like what is it called, deduction, So I thought that was a really neat way of being able to figure out, where Planet X is. And I just was so shocked that was going to be the type of gameplay, I guess. I would not have been like, clue equals science looking for planet. So I thought that was a neat twist on the game of like clue or deduction.
Lovely. So Search for Planet X. Look at that rating. It is climbing up those BGG rankings. 111. That's pretty impressive, actually.
I think the app really helped. That was one that I thought that the app was definitely a pro and didn't feel like it deterred from the game. Like I thought it was neat, and it also kind of more fits with the sci-fi because it's like futuristic because you're using an app.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Any other final thoughts, Corinn, before we end the stream today?
I don't think so.
All right. And if you haven't already, please make sure you go check out Corinn's channel at SuperBlondeNerd. I'm excited to see what you put out next. And what are you putting out next?
It is going to be some more board game content.
Ooh, awesome.
So going to talk about, we're getting to the end of the year. So I got to talk about some of my favorite games that I've played during this year. I am currently working on customizing a storage box for Marvel Champions for my brother-in-law. So there's some fun combination of board games and art and all that stuff. So yeah, some more board game stuff for sure coming up. So
awesome. Right up your alley. Perfect. On our end, we are working on, I'm currently in the middle of editing our Sheol organizing video. It's quite a doozy. It's like an hour of footage. So it took a while, but I think it really does help with that setup. So that's Sheol, one of the most recent Kickstarter delivered games. I'm going to do a recording for the Paperback Adventures organizing. And then I have a list coming out. I'm going on vacation next weekend. So I'm going to put out a list on the games that I'm actually taking on vacation with me. So you can get a very much up to date. This is what I'm actually taking on vacation and what I can recommend you also take. And this is an overseas vacation. So it's whatever can fit into a bag, but also leaves enough room for everything else, clothing, as well as souvenirs on the way back. And there's some fun games that run into that too. So I'm excited to drop that video, as I think it'll be very applicable with the holiday season come up. And speaking to what you were describing, your favorite games of the year, that's what December's for. Ooh, dropping all of the best of 2022 videos. I got all those all ran up already and figuring out what's going in. I've had a couple of disruptions with Master of Darkness 2 as well as Paperback Adventures. So those will probably show up pretty high on those lists. But if you saw my review for Blood on the Clocktower, you probably know what the best game for 2022 is already. It's pretty great. So that is what's coming down the pipeline for us. Anything else, Corinn?
No, I'm excited though. Can't wait to hear your lists.
I am pumped. But that's everything. That's what we've been playing. Thank you so much again, Corinn, for being here today. And for everybody watching, if you have any questions about any of the games that we talked about here, let us know down in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed already, make sure that you're subscribed. It's the best way to help the channel grow. Make sure you go check out SuperBlondeNerd. Go check out Corinn on her channel, link in the description. Make sure you're subscribed to her. And thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to hear your answers to all of the questions and just in general, what you think about these games. Corinn, anything else?
SideGame Strong.
SideGame Strong, y'all. We'll talk to y'all later.